Drop into the chat. Let me know if you are listening live or watching the replay. Where are you in your job search right now? Do you feel stuck, frustrated, maybe applying and hearing nothing? Tell me. I want to know. So here's the deal. I have been helping people for the past 6 years, and I've helped over 1,000 people. Before that, I spent more than 15 years at organizations like Deloitte, Accenture, at the big banks, RBC, Scotiabank, CIBC, boutique consulting companies, vendors, all kinds of organizations working with teams across different industries. And I've seen what happens on both sides of the hiring table. I have hired people, and I've also helped people get hired. And what I'm going to show you today is going to make you uncomfortable because you're going to see yourself in these mistakes. And then I'm going to show you what happens when we fix them. Now, I'm going to be roasting a resume. But before I roast it, I need you to hear this. Most of the executives that I work with, whether you're at the director level, VP level, even senior managers and individual contributors with more than 15 years of experience, usually earning $150,000 to $400,000 plus. If you're listening, I will bet you the fact that you're listening at 8:30 p.m. right now or whatever time, you're a high achiever and you're already working at the next level. You're most likely operating a level or two above your title. I have seen professionals and I have worked with professionals running 40 million plus programs, leading 18-person teams, driving enterprise-wide transformation. But when I look at their resume, it reads like a job description from 2019. Not even 2019, 1992. You're positioning yourself as a team lead when you are an executive. You're not whatever title HR slapped on your business card. I've had clients who did not have the director level title, yet they were operating at the director level and above. I currently have a client who came to me frustrated because he wasn't even getting interviews for senior individual contributor roles, and he has an interview lined up on Thursday for a director level role. Before he met me, he was positioning himself for roles that are beneath him, that were not a fit. And after digging into his experience, we realized that he's the person who recovered millions from a vendor that nobody else caught. He's the person who migrated entire functions across multiple countries and saved millions of dollars. Maybe that is you. Maybe you are the person who built the governance model that kept a 1.2 billion payment operation audit clean. But you can't see it because you've been taught to be humble. You have been taught to let the work speak for itself. And I'm here to tell you, and I'm not going to be like all of these, career coaches who are parroting the whole, it's your positioning and your positioning. I'm going to tell you that you absolutely need to be the best at what you do and you need to have mastery. This is how you're going to stand out. But thinking that all you need to do is be great at what you do, how are people going to find you? You have to be able to speak for the work that you do and that you deliver. Because guess what? Being a great communicator is part of being a leader. It is part of the job. And a lot of what I work with people on is actually being great at their job. Because if you can't communicate your vision to your teams, if you can't sell your value to stakeholders and boards of directors, you're not going to be able to move the needle on initiatives. You're not going to be able to get buy-in. Now, let's talk about the mainstream resume advice that is out there. Because God help me. God help me. I just want to, scream at the top of the roof because I'm tired. I'm sick and tired of seeing it. Mistake number one, when it comes to your resume is not just a piece of paper. Treat it like any leadership asset that you have. It is a representation of the value that you bring to the table. And you cannot create a resume that looks like a suit that you bought from Walmart. I am sorry. I'm going to be very mean today. I'm just warning you. When you write a resume that is a laundry list of bullets instead of telling a story, that looks horrible. If you are interviewing at the director level, who is going to read your resume eventually after you get shortlisted by recruiters, a VP? Do you think a VP is going to have time to look at a resume with 12 bullets? That's what I saw with one of my clients when he came to me. He literally had 12 bullets under one role. No paragraph, no scope, no context, just a wall of bullet points that all start with led, managed, supported. Let me see what's in the comments here. Good evening, Spencer. Yeah, so let me show you how this resume looks like. Obviously, I removed the name and I made this completely cleansed and anonymous because I value, all of my clients' privacy. But let me just show you just so that we can paint the picture here. And I bet that there's at least one person who's on this live who will identify with this. I mean, look at this. Look at this. Pages and pages and pages, right? My head hurts just looking at this document. And I love, I love every one of my clients and I love you all. And so I might have the patience to push through and read this wall of bullets, but a recruiter's not going to do that. And please stop with the whole bots and no one reads this. It just baffles me that sometimes I sit on calls with technology leaders who still believe this. You're technology leaders. You've built systems. You understand that there are no bots behind systems. There are automations. These automations are usually triggered by an event. And actually, what is going on right now is if an application tracking system uses AI, they will disclose that usually in the job posting. They'll tell you that they are using AI for privacy and compliance reasons. And if they are using AI, you should actually be happy. Have you seen ChatGPT? If you drop like a resume in there and actually ask it and drop a job posting and ask it, does this resume meet the job posting requirements? It will tell you accurately. If you actually export your LinkedIn profile and put in a job and upload a job posting at the same time, AI is going to accurately infer whether you've done those roles and responsibilities. AI will have the patience to actually sift through large amounts of data. A recruiter won't. So this whole fear around, there are bots and there's automation. If that exists, I'm not going to get selected is all false. It's hard to admit this, but the reason you're getting rejected, there are two reasons actually. Reason number one, you applied too late. At the end of the day, they only need one person to fill the role. Why would they interview 100 people? They don't need to do that. The hiring team doesn't need to do that. They will shortlist maybe 20 max. And out of that 20, they're not going to interview every single person. So chances are there's someone else who's a better fit than you. If you are part of that first batch of people and you applied early, now if you're person number 100 and they already, shortlisted 30 people for the interview, then you simply miss the deadline. That's it. It's like if you put an ad for a contractor to paint your house and 10 people reach out to you, you're not going to talk to every single one of them. If you find one out of the first 5 people who applied, then you're not even going to consider the rest, right? So that it's really that simple, but people overcomplicate it. We tend to not want to admit that we need to change something about ourselves and we need to do things differently. Okay, so that's the reason. Reason number 2 is yes, you are simply not a fit and you did not position yourself correctly. Until this day, after 1,000 people that I've helped, I will tell you that there's only a handful of people, that I can count on my fingers who actually read job postings properly and align to the minimum requirements. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what the correct structure of a resume is, because again, I'm so tired of all of the misinformation. And I love how there's so many people who post on LinkedIn and say, oh, this template got me the job, copy it. Or, someone is going to say, yes, they're trying to endorse some AI, basically app that was developed because they get kickbacks and they get a commission, and they'll try to, portray this misinformation. Who you need to listen to are people who screen and recruiters who actually do this day in and day out and read resumes. That's who you need to listen to. Not people who are disconnected or people who sell software and trick you. Why should you listen to me? I'll tell you why. Because I've actually worked with teams who developed application tracking systems. I know how they work. So I'll tell you that all of this like automation and I got rejected and bots and it does not exist. Even with the latest application tracking systems, there's still limited use of AI, and most recruiters override it because they find that it's not, because they want to actually read the resume and not just rely on AI. And then the second thing is the reason you want to listen to me is because I'm part of an international association of career coaches. I've built resume curriculums. I partner with recruiters and I have learned from recruiters. Because at the end of the day, you want to learn from the people who are actually doing the work. You are an executive, so you get that, right? You listen to the people who actually are going to consume the information. Okay, enough with the rant. Let's get into the right structure of a resume. So I'm going to show you what the after looks like. So here's the before. This is the before. I'm going to show you the after. Let me see if I can find it. I actually built this today, so you're all in luck. And as usual, I always go by the name Snow White on all of the resumes. And I also strip everything out of the real information so that you would never guess who that is. Okay, so let's go through this. This is the winning structure of a resume. I love using this template. It's almost identical to LinkedIn in many ways. And LinkedIn is very easy to read when you look at someone's experience section. So why reinvent the wheel? I've tested this resume again over 1,000 people, so I know it works. And a lot of people are going to fight me and talk to me about, oh, but this doesn't get parsed and there's multiple columns and blah, blah, blah. Listen, the advice that I give is based on data. I don't give advice based on theory. I give this advice based on data. Like I said, I have a client who has an interview on Thursday. He used this resume. There was no referral. He applied cold. I've tested this with C-level clients. I've tested this with VP clients, director clients, senior individual client, and contributor clients. It works. Why does it work? There are a couple of things. There are a couple of reasons. One, it is very easy to read. If you looked at the previous version, it was a wall of text. There was just no information hierarchy. And this is where I'm going to geek out and tell you and bring in my UX basically hat. When a recruiter reads the resume, they're going to read it from top to bottom. The biggest mistake that I see, people make is they take up a lot of space at the beginning of the resume with a bunch of bullets with high level achievements, some kind of summary. You don't want any of that. A recruiter wants to cut to the chase. They want to get right to your experience and they want to be able to relate everything you've done to a role. So when you have all of these generic bullets, like a lot of people, have, where it says like, oh, my summary of achievements or whatever, the recruiter's confused because they don't know which role these achievements belong to. Now, I like to have the profile section on the side because it just gives a nice, basically summary of what you've done, but it doesn't take away space. And again, it allows the recruiter to cut to the chase and see your most recent experience, which is probably where they're going to spend most of their time. The other thing that I love about this is that the paragraph acts as an overview of what you've done in the role. It actually helps the recruiter understand the scope of what you've done. And so look at this. In his previous resume, he didn't even talk about how big the team was that he was overseeing. He didn't talk about, how this, platform that he was overseeing spanned multiple countries, that he actually supported a 40 million plus annual spend and 7,500 employees. This is why a lot of my clients are able to get roles that are above their title. Can you share with us the template, please? I did not see all of these comments until now. I'm just like, going on a whatchamacallit rant here because I'm so excited. And yes, I am correct. Diva, are you a recruiter? I can't see your profile. Let me look you up. Anyway, can I share the template? No, I'm not going to share the template. And I'll tell you why. Because a template is not the magical thing. that's going to help you build a powerful resume. I'm going to walk you through how this resume was put together in the first place. Okay? This isn't just like, let's put a bunch of information and just because it's pretty, you get selected. The reason people get interviews when working with me, even though they've never gotten an interview before in many cases, or they never got interviews for roles that they're actually interested in, or they've gotten interviews, but it's for roles that are too junior. The reason that happens when they work with me is because we do a lot of work prior to building the resume. And the number one thing is actually doing work that helps us determine that they're targeting the right role. The number one reason, and I keep saying this over and over and over again, the number one reason that people get rejected is because they apply for roles that are not the right fit. And you might think that this role is the right role for you, but many times after working with me, executives realize that they're going after the wrong roles. And I'll tell you why. Because a lot of high achievers have imposter syndrome. They forget the magnitude of what they've done. I was talking to a client of mine, and we are targeting VP level roles. And I asked him, has anyone ever sat down with you and asked you these questions about what you've done in each of your roles and what you've done in your career, and even like so granular as to, hey, what was the size of your team? So what, you partnered with organizations. What were those organizations? What was the impact that you've created? No one has gone to that level with him. No one asked him these granular questions. And he said that sharing that felt uncomfortable because he had to really go deep and remember what he's done. He had to really work hard on accessing that information. And me asking him those questions unlocked, that information. And he realized that he's actually done more than he realized. Okay? So that's the thing. If I give you a template, it's like giving you a Tylenol and telling you this is going to fix all your problems, and that's not going to fix your problem. I mean, you can look at this and replicate it if you want. You can create this in Canva if you want. But do you really think that that's the reason you're not getting interviews, because your resume doesn't look pretty, or because you don't remember what you've done and you don't know what to include, right? And maybe even it's because you're going after the wrong role. A lot of people have a hard time knowing how to translate what they've done at their organization. They don't know how it translates externally, especially if you've been at the same organization for more than 5 years. And this particular client actually is a very good example. He was targeting individual contributor roles and manager roles when he should be targeting director level roles. Because when you're supporting 40 million plus in annual spend, and you're overseeing 7,500 and you're impacting 7,500 employees, and you're designing scalable policies at the enterprise level, you're actually at the director level. But his organization did him a disservice and gave him a lower title. And that is why he was confused for the longest time. But after him and I sat down and we went through his entire history through my career archetype assessment, which is not this template. It's a humongous, questionnaire that I give all of my clients. And, I sit down with every single client to understand what they've done. That's when we came to this conclusion. So there has to be work that is done in order to get here. It's almost like if you are in product, before you build the product, you have to run discovery sessions. You have to sit with stakeholders, look at their, current processes, map them out, and then you build the system. And this is exactly my approach with my clients. I don't build the product without doing the discovery work, without asking the questions, without interviewing them to understand what is it that they've been doing for the past 10 years. And we need to come up with a strategy to help them become who they want to be 2 years later or 1 year later. And so there needs to be all of that strategic work before you build the resume. And that's the problem. This is why a lot of you struggle. You skip the strategic work. And this is why you have resumes that are surface level. Okay. Now, I want to go back and talk about the other mistake. The other mistake is that you're hiding your scope. This executive obviously managed 40 million in annual spend across 3 countries, 7,500 employees. And you know what his original resume said? Nothing. None of those numbers. All he said was he led a team. That's it. Let me tell you something. 40 million in enterprise spend across Canada, US, and Asia Pacific is not team lead level. That's enterprise spend governance. That's director level scope, but he couldn't see it because he was too close to his own work. Let's talk about mistake number 3. You're copying the job posting instead of mapping it. I see this all the time. People read a job posting and then they copy and paste the language straight into their resume. And then they wonder why it sounds fake. And if you use ChatGPT, that's the end product. It'll basically regurgitate the job posting and help you build a resume based on that. Here's a difference. What we have in this executive's resume has a lot of specific things to what he's done. ChatGPT is not going to come up with an 18-person function. It's not going to talk about how he led across Canada, US, and Asia Pacific. It's not going to come up with supporting 40 million plus annual spend. It's not going to come up with how he saved 2+ FTEs because he implemented AI-enabled expense flagging in SAP. Those come from me sitting down with him and asking him specific questions. The other part is this beautiful part. So when I often see those resumes that are a wall of bullets, like 12 of them, it sort of takes away the magic. Okay? I want you to almost think of you designing a financial report for a board of directors. You're not just, if you just give a wall of numbers to them, then that's just going to be overwhelming. But when you tell a story and then you have the bullets reserved for the metrics and the impact, you can see that they stand out, right? And notice the format. We lead with the number and then we talk about the how. Okay. Now, the other mistake that I wanted to share with you is you think you need a network to get hired. This is the one that's going to get me in trouble. Everyone says networking is everything. 80% of jobs are hidden. You need to know someone. Let me tell you what I've actually seen. One of my clients, he was found by the Amazon hiring manager on LinkedIn. He didn't even apply. He got found. Another client of mine, again, she was a director at an organization within healthcare, and she got laid off, and we worked together. She applied to a VP level role, cold, no referral, and she got the interview and the job. Now, here's what actually happened in every one of these cases. First of all, they got clear on the right role after the work that we did. They got clear on their niche. They got clear on their value proposition. They got clear on what they do better than anyone else. And it's a combination of multiple things. It's not just your title. It's not just the roles and responsibilities. It could also be the industry. It could be, your leadership style. It could be many things, and it could be multiple things that my clients and I, identify. But in addition to that, their resume and LinkedIn told a story so sharp, so specific, so clearly aligned to what the company needed that the recruiter and hiring manager couldn't just not call them. So you don't need a network. You need to be able to position yourself correctly. The resume is a byproduct of that. It is a deliverable that comes, out of that. So what I wanted to say is that sometimes people actually go through their network and tell me that, you know what, I went through my referrals and nothing materialized. Because guess what? The positioning wasn't strong enough. They're always going to ask you for your resume. And if the hiring manager reads the resume and they see that you're not the right fit, then it doesn't matter who you know. Okay? So I hope that this makes things clear. A lot of you don't realize that you're not following best practices. And then you wonder why you're not getting interviews. I've seen it hundreds of times. I've seen it hundreds of times. So, what's possible when you identify the right role, when you are clear on your direction, when you position yourself properly, is what ends up happening is you actually accelerate your career. You end up growing your career. One of my clients was able to pivot from policy because she felt pigeonholed and add $100,000 to her previous six-figure salary because she got clear on her direction and she had the right positioning and a strong resume. So that's what's possible for you. You could literally add between $50,000 to $100,000 to your salary if you tell the right story. And you don't have to depend on the market or depend on who you know. You can take the bull by its horns by positioning yourself properly. When you have someone who's relentless, like me, who asks you question after question after question until we uncover the gold in what you've done and the real scope of what you've accomplished, just like this client who at first didn't talk about how he supported more than 40 million in spend and 7,500 employees. But after we uncover that, we are able to open doors to opportunities. people finally start understanding what you've done and realize that you have so much to offer, and you no longer become a prisoner to the current role that you're in. You no longer have to feel like you have to wake up in the morning and show up to a job that you hate or you're not excited about or that's stagnant or boring, because you have all of these additional opportunities. Let me say this one more time because it matters. The biggest lie in executive job search is that you need to know someone. You don't. What you need is better positioning, a resume and a LinkedIn profile so precisely positioned that when a recruiter searches for enterprise spend governance or ERP transformation or director of product or customer success leader, your name comes up. And when they click and they see how beautifully laid out your experience is, they will call you and they will be so excited to talk to you. Because at the end of the day, recruiters want to fill these positions. It's in their best interest to fill them. And when they find someone who's impressive and the hiring manager is excited about you, that saves them time. So when you position yourself properly, that's the opportunity that you create for you, for yourself. At the end of the day, why we do what we do is to create financial freedom for ourselves. And the more opportunities that you have, the better the chance that you have to create that better life for yourself, to provide for your family, to be happy. But you need to work on the way you communicate your value. You can be a great communicator when it comes to your role, but when it comes to yourself, you may not be a great communicator because it's a different skill set that you need to use. So I hope that this has been useful. If you need help with this, you can book a career diagnosis with me. And the purpose of the career diagnosis is to understand your situation, determine what options you have and what possibilities you have. Then we can create a plan to help you get there. Whether it's adding $50,000 to your salary, $100,000, moving up. I take in your situation holistically, and I'll tell you in honesty whether I can help you or not. If I can, then we can explore what that looks like. And if I can't, I'll still try my best to recommend resources for you. So how do you book the career diagnosis? Let me show you. You need to go into my profile. And so I'm going to share my screen here and show you how to do that. First of all, there should be a link in this actual post, but if you can't find it, you can go to my profile. And so I will share my screen so that you can see my profile. Let us see here. So when you go to my profile, you can click on book an appointment, this button here, right underneath the heading. And it's going to take you to this page and you can click on book your career diagnosis. So there are a couple of questions that I would love for you to answer just so that I can get clarity on what is going on and what your goals are. That way we can make the best out of our call. And I actually encourage you to watch this video as well, because you're going to learn my story. You're going to understand why I do what I do and the types of clients that I work with. This is just a subset of some of the companies where my clients have landed. Okay, hope you have a wonderful Monday, and I hope that you learned a lot. it would mean so much to me if you can take a moment and like this live. That way I know that it was of value and you enjoyed it. What it'll also do is it will put this video into someone's feed, especially if they're looking for an opportunity and they've been fed all this misinformation. That's what it's going to do. So I would really appreciate it if you just take a second and you do that. And I'm curious to know, if you are still watching and you are in Toronto, if you would be interested in an in-person event. I'm thinking of hosting co-hosting actually an in-person event with an amazing colleague of mine. I shall not reveal who she is. It's going to be a surprise. So if you are in Toronto and you want to make it to the event, would love for you to let me know. Just put that in the comments. Okay. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.